You think so,
Especially
yeah?
journalists. Now, with many in the United Kingdom and indeed the world over spending mega money during this Christmas period, it's a time when saving money goes totally out of the window.
That's right. So we took this opportunity to invite Imran Pichette from the Islamic Bank of Britain to discuss effective ways of saving our hard-earned cash. Welcome to the show, Brother Imran. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. Now, it is a time, isn't it? But, I mean, people who don't spend money, I mean, obviously as a Muslim community, we don't spend as much as the non-Muslims do around Christmas time. But it is a difficult time even for us not to be splashing out. There's so many things to buy. There's so many extra social opportunities going on. How do we turn that around? How do we save our hard-earned cash?
I think it's down to good old-fashioned tips in terms of financial management. It's about ensuring that you only buy what you actually need. And when you do want to buy on certain luxuries, you do shop around. There are a lot of choices out there now. And ensuring that you're, as part of your own prudent financial planning, that you do keep a certain funds aside for a rainy day or for your long-term savings needs, and only buy them when you actually have the cash, rather than getting lured into credit and borrowing and payday loans, etc. And that the temptation is there because you'll see a lot more ads around that or across all types of media, etc. And interestingly enough, yesterday I was reading that this last week coincided with a number of festivals, both around the Hindu festival, the Jain festival, and obviously Muharram started as well.
Yeah, Diwali.
And all these things. So people do, on these occasions, it affects Muslims as well in terms of, you know, we interact with people of all different faiths and friends and family. And
but we say that, you know, Christmas period coming up, there's going to be a lot more spending, but there's also a lot of good deals around those times. Isn't that also the case?
Yes, there are. Because
so we should perhaps take advantage of those deals.
If you have to buy that particular purchase, because generally after Christmas there are even better deals than Christmas as well. Right, so it's always better to shop around and try and look around for where you can get the best bargain for you.
Abdullah, but you're a techie guy. I mean, you mentioned e-commerce when you were speaking to us earlier. Do you think that's the way to go? Do you think that's the way to find the best deals?
Absolutely, no-brainer. I mean, more and more people are buying online, and I think a lot of not even very technical people now, go online and search. If you're buying a model number of a TV and you see it in your local retailer, go online and just type that model number into a search engine and have a look at how much it costs from online retailers. You might be surprised in terms of the price difference. Of course, you don't get the touch and feel aspect when you're buying online, which a lot of people prefer to do as well, so there are pros and cons.
And Imran, you mentioned earlier, you said it's good old-fashioned budgeting, but how many people do you think actually budget? I mean, actually sit down and say, this is how much I have to spend and I'm not going to go beyond that?
I think it's circumstances force you into that, considering the tough economic times that we're going through and the strains on people's budgets, financial budgets. People are generally, we're seeing, are tightening the belts and are being a bit prudent around them. But it's so easy to fall into temptation these days, with pressures from society, from colleagues, from work, from your kids wanting to buy. But it's just a matter of just taking it in the stride and one bit by bit planning ahead and making sure that when you do save it in a way that will help towards your eventual financial goal.
Now, there are several Sharia-compliant savings products out there. Tell us a little bit more about what kind of products there might be available for customers who are looking and thinking about a saving account.
At Islamic Bank of Britain, we have the widest range of Sharia-compliant savings accounts available, starting from young person savings accounts, which have instant access, to young person savings accounts for notice accounts where you want to leave it for a bit longer. Instant access
doesn't sound like a saving account because you could just go and get all your money back and spend it all straight away.
But for children, it's you can only your parent or guardian has to be on that account.
Right,
so the kids can't access the funds immediately like that. So then you have your notice accounts, and then you go into longer term, 60-day, 90, all the way up to 2 years. And if you shop around on a few of the best buy tables, Islamic Bank of Britain for most of this year, and still is, we're on the top of the best buy tables for 2 of our products. And for the other 2, we're actually in the best buy tables generally as well.
And I want to come in just on something you mentioned earlier. You mentioned about payday loans, and we've seen a lot of stuff in the media about it at the moment. Are they 4,000% interest and 3,000% interest, and yet they're doing the biggest business they've ever done. Why is that? Why can't the traditional banks meet this demand?
Obviously, they're taking advantage of the climate that we're generally in and taking advantage of people who are in vulnerable situations. And when you find yourself, and people get in vulnerable situations not necessarily because of their own doing, they're forced into whether redundancies or certain pressures on them, that the temptation is there. And if they're dangling, someone's dangling that carrot in front of you. Generally, banks try to be a bit more responsible. There are a lot more rules around how we go about offering people funds and making sure we do the financial analysis. Is it fit for purpose? Does it meet the customer needs? So we are more tightly regulated in terms of what we can do and can't do.
And bringing in our guest, Hilary, are you a budgeter? Are you very careful? Are you being tempted by a 4,000% payday loan?
No, I haven't. I don't think I would be. I try and be sensible, but there's always the odd thing that you kind of want to impulse buy. But I do tend to shop around these days, and I'll look online and maybe wait till I get home and do a sort of...
And I think the internet does make it easier. As you know, I hate technology, but that's one thing I can do, Abdullah, but I do shop on the internet.
Price comparison, right? It's a no-brainer. The other thing you could do also is a really good website. Am I allowed to mention it?
Yeah.
It's called moneysavingexpert.com. It's a very good website, and there are so many tips in terms of bank accounts, insurance. The big one at the moment, obviously, are your energy bills.
Yeah.
Gives you good advice on how to actually switch. Moneysavingexpert.com.
Excellent. Depression is one of the biggest causes of mental ill health, and it's thought to cost businesses billions of pounds a year in lost productivity.
On National Stress Awareness Day, Living the Life now looks at what some of Europe's largest employers are doing to tackle depression head-on. Ashfaq Azam explains.
Jeff Mcdonald is a vice president at the global consumer goods giant Unilever. 5 years ago, he suffered his first anxiety attack, which kept him off work for over 2 months. He's just one of many workers across Europe affected by this. It's estimated that 1 in 10 employees are affected by depression. In Spain and France, 1 in 5 suffer, and in the UK, it's 1 in 6.
I was kind of anxious and depressed, and it played itself out in things like no appetite, couldn't read the newspaper, particularly stories that were of a negative nature, was anxious about my children and where they were all the time. I love the outdoors, I love cycling, I'm always on my bicycle, couldn't even get on a bicycle, couldn't do any exercise. And I suppose at the most extreme, suicidal thoughts, thinking about how, could I carry on? Would I see the end of this? And was there any light at the end of the tunnel?
The workplace can often be where depression starts. A recent survey showed that UK workers are the unhappiest in Europe. Only 2/3 of British employees are satisfied with their current employer. Most blamed long hours, low pay, and a lack of appreciation.
Trigger to depression can be no feedback, not know how you're performing at work. And these are not difficult things for leaders to do, to say to somebody, hey, well done, you've done a great job, and just give them a bit of feedback. Or brave leaders to talk about their own illness and show people, the guys, and girls, it happened to me, it could happen to you, and it's not the end of the world. And by the way, you can get better.
Some of Europe's largest employers, including British Telecom, Deutsche Post and Royal Mail, have pledged to tackle depression head-on. The initiative aims to help businesses reduce the financial impact of mental illness. It made identifying and supporting sufferers one of its priorities.
It's the same as any other type of illness, whether that's an injury sustained, cancer, heart disease. Mental illness is a disease. It just requires a different approach in terms of treatment, rehabilitation, and reintegration into the work.
Work-related stress can affect anyone, from office workers to CEOs and athletes. Almost half of British adults say they are currently suffering from stress, and 1/4 of these people believe they are sometimes close to breaking point. Many people have stressed for over a year, and statistics show financial cost to Europe's businesses is estimated to be about £57 billion in lost productivity every year. In Britain, the loss stands at £26 million.
Well, we're the unhappiest workforce in Europe.
I know, but you know what was really funny is when that played and we found out that in Britain we are the unhappiest workforce, everyone here laughed. That
Really?
made
They did,
us
didn't
happy.
they? Our
Yeah.
whole panel here of guests laughed. They did.
That made us
I mean,
happy.
Hilary, you said that you don't get very stressed, but do any of those things ring true, you think, about employers? And obviously not necessarily your employer. I wouldn't wish you to comment on your employer. I'm sure Alzheimer's Research UK are a wonderful employer. But in terms of, I mean, in previous employment maybe, do you think that does contribute to stress, not being appreciated, long hours, things like that?
Absolutely, yeah, I think so. And I think some office environments aren't necessarily the easiest places to work. And I think if you don't feel appreciated working very long hours, especially in the sort of current climate where people are all sort of maybe fighting to hold on to jobs, and so I think people do get stressed with work, and it's sort of knowing how to wind down from that and walk away, I guess.
Yeah, that's the key thing, isn't it? Abdul Akbar, you're in the tech now. I remember reading about a well-known tech firm, I think it was Microsoft actually. They have power nap rooms.
They do.
At work.
They do, absolutely. And so do companies like Google as well. I mean, you get these nap pods where you can go away and actually have a power nap for half an hour, 15 minutes. I think what's really important from a working perspective is actually have a really important work-life balance. I think sometimes you have to make sure that you do get away from work and see your kids or go and do an activity or something.
I'm just having a note with the producer. Hello, producer. Nap pod. Order nap pod for Islam channel. That's right.
Halfway through the BT's weekend. But Imran, we talked about debts and things like that. That's also a major factor of stress, isn't it? And you were giving us top tips on how to save money, but how can you give us top tips now about how to not get into debt, perhaps?
How not to get into
Yeah.
debt? Not to get into debt, obviously I would say, first of all, I recommend save with Islamic Bank of Britain.
I had a feeling you might say that. Yeah.
Because you can save ethically according to your principles, table topping rates and great customer service. Also, just always before you make a decision about purchasing an impulse purchase, I think that's the most dangerous position where you can be, is always leave it for 24 hours. After 24 hours, do you still need that thing? Do you think twice about it? And do you have to cut back on another aspect of your budget? Then I think that will make you twice.
24 hours.
Do you know, I had a good one. Somebody said to me, put your debit cards and your credit cards actually in a bucket of ice in the freezer. Okay? So you can't get them out. Yeah. And what you have to do is you have to go home, take the bucket out or the pot out, leave it for it to melt, and which time it gives you time to really think about, do you want to buy that thing? Yeah. There you go. That'll help
or you
with
could
stress.
go online and just, if you've got your card memorised like I have, just go and make the purchase.
Do you remember the 16-digit number?
Yeah, I do.